Automotive technology has changed a lot in the past century to make cars last longer and require less service, but there's one thing that remains the same: the need to change the oil. Now, changing your own oil at home isn't necessarily difficult or expensive, but yet many people have no idea how to do it. So I've been working on engines for almost 6 years, and I've worked on almost every make and model of car and truck available, and I've changed the oil on most of those as well. So to change your oil at home, it just requires a couple simple tools and some oil. So the first tool you're going to need is a ratchet, and most people are going to have this at home. The only thing you might extra need to go get is a socket that's going to fit on your drain plug. So after that, you're going to need an oil filter wrench, which helps you take the oil filter off and put it back on. And then you're going to need some oil. Now, I'd recommend a good quality synthetic oil with a name brand filter, because those usually seem to give the best results. So after that, you're going to need a way to get under the car. So if you have a truck, it's easy because you can usually just slide under there. But if you have a car like I do, there's no way you can fit. So you're going to need some way to get the car up. Now, you can either use a jack or some rams. And keep in mind, if you use a jack, you're going to need jack stands to keep the car from falling if the jack slips or if it breaks somehow. And remember that anytime you're under a car, you need to have the park brake set and have the car in park. So now that we have everything we need, we're ready to change the oil. So the first step is to get under a car with your ratchet and your oil pan. So then you need to find the drain plug. And once you find your drain plug, you need to loosen it with the ratchet and then put your drain pan right under there. And then you need to take it all the way out and let the oil drain out into that pan. So while your oil's draining, you can get under the car with an oil filter wrench. So then you need to go find your oil filter. Now, most of the time, it's going to look like this, and it'll be sitting in the car in this orientation. Now, sometimes cars are going to have a paper filter, which is going to be inside a plastic filter, like housing, and that will normally be on top of the motor. But if you're having trouble finding yours, feel free to look at the owner's manual or look online. So once you have that taken out, you want to set it upside down in the oil pan and let the oil drain out. Or if it's a paper filter, you're gonna pour the oil out and then pull out the paper part. So then that's all you need to do to drain the oil out of your car. So since all the used oil is out of the motor, it's now time to fill it up. So for that, you want to take your drain plug and put it back in the motor and then tighten it with your ratchet. And if you don't do this, you can put the oil in, it's just all going to pour right back out. So then after that, you need to put your filter in. So what I do is I take my filter and I take my oil and I'll open it and I dip my finger inside of there, and then I'll rub it around this rubber seal on the top, and then I put it on as tight as I can with my hand. And the reason I do that is to make sure that it doesn't stick to the engine. So after you put it on as tight as you can with your hand, you want to get your oil filter wrench and give it an extra half turn. And that just tightens it down enough that it won't leak, and it also makes sure that next time you go to change the oil, you can take it off. So now that you have those in, it's time to put the oil back in the motor. So once you go to do that, there will normally be an oil fill cap that looks somewhat like this. Most of them are a circle, but mine's a square. So then you get a funnel and you pour in the recommended amount of oil. So once you have your oil in, you want to wait for about 10 minutes and let it settle down to the bottom of the motor. So once it's set, you now need to check your oil and make sure that you have enough. So to do that, most cars are going to have this ring. It'll either be red or yellow, and you just pull it out, wipe it off, and then you want to put it back in, and then you just need to wait for a second so the oil can get back on that. So then once you've waited, you can pull it back out, and then you can read what it says. Now mine says it's full, because I usually keep my cars topped up on oil, but if yours says that it's low, you can feel free to put some more oil in, or if it says that it's too high, I would normally just wait a little bit and drive it around because sometimes the oil filter needs to suck in some extra oil. So then after that, you've done it. So a task that might have seemed impossible earlier and you had no idea how to do is now just a piece of routine maintenance. So first, we learned how to pick the oil and filter for your car, and we determined what tools you're going to need. Then, we discussed how to drain the oil out of the car and take the old oil filter out. Then finally, I explained how to fill the car back up with oil and check your work to make sure you put the right amount in. Now, instead of having to pay some mechanic to do the work while you sit in a dirty waiting room, you can do it at home, and you get a peace of mind that the oil change was done right and with the oil that you want. So finally, with this knowledge, you might find yourself a new hobby, or even greatly extend the life of your car, all while saving money.